Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Force here with some more coverage of War of the Vikings. Today I'll be showing you a full match, and I also wanted to take a bit of time today to talk with you guys about the gameplay. I just put up a video yesterday talking about how this game is in alpha right now. It just went into Steam's early access, and I talked about how I was going to be covering it this week. Well, I noticed some people, when looking at the game, were sort of wondering, how does this game feel, how does it play, and what's the combat like? So I'd like to clarify exactly those things and also give my opinion of how the combat system is in this game. And we saw lots of comparisons to the another brawler style game, which was Chivalry Medieval Warfare. But before we jump into any of that, let me just sort of clarify how the combat system works in this title. So like War of the Roses, it's a directional based combat system. So whether you're blocking or attacking, you're doing everything in a directional manner so as to deal with incoming attacks or to avoid your opponent's blocking and land your attack. So for example, right here, you notice me, I've got an attack in the upper right hand position and then an overhead attack. You do both of those by clicking the attack button, which is left mouse button, and then moving your mouse in the direction with which you want to swing or block. So if I want to do a forward attack, if I want to do an overhead attack, I click left mouse button and then push my mouse forward slightly. A left attack, left mouse button, mouse to the left, right mouse button, right mouse to the right does a right attack. So, I mean, it's pretty basic in terms of conceptually, but I like that combat system. I think it's rather interesting. First time I played it, it took some getting used to because I wasn't familiar with the game with combat mechanics like that. At least I haven't played one recently. I have played, like for example, I did play War of the Roses, but it's been a while since I've played a game like that. So it took a little bit of getting used to, getting my feet wet again, if you will. But once you do become familiar with, making sure you're attacking in the proper direction, it's very rewarding. It's very satisfying because it then becomes about sort of outwitting your opponent and making sure that your attacks are landing at the proper time and in the proper direction to avoid your opponent's dodging and or blocking. You'll have noticed I'm doing pretty all right at that stuff here. I mean, I was actually thoroughly surprised with how well I did at the start of this match. I ended up coming out about even, but almost all, well, not almost all, but a good portion of my deaths end up being to falling in water, which, mind you, is one of things that very, very much so frustrates me about this game. It's like, look, if I was in combat and I fell in the water, I would just swim. Maybe the assumption is that falling in the water means you're automatically dead because your opponent's going to stab you in the head with a spear, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Oh, this was mighty embarrassing as well. So yeah, it's a directional combat system that goes for the blocking as well as the attacking. If you're the Thane, which is the character class that has a shield, then you're just blocking a shield and moving your mouse to block in a direction. So if your opponent attacks with a over the left-hand shoulder attack, you're going to want to make sure you block in that direction as well, the corresponding direction. And there's also a parry system. If, for example, this class right here with the two-handed weapon, while I don't have a shield to block, I can still parry in a direction, and the great thing is if you land a parry, your next attack, the attack animation, is quicker, which leads me into one of the big parts that I wanted to talk about with this game, and that is the animation priority that this game has. So this is an animation priority a combat system. What does that mean? Quick, basically, footnotes is whenever you do an attack, that takes priority, and you need to make sure when you commit to something that it's actually what you want to do, because once you get things started, like a specialty attack, there is no going back. Until that animation has completed, your character is stuck in position, essentially. So that goes with specialty attacks as well as things like dodging, and here's one of my embarrassing water deaths. So all those things, that animation priority and the directional attack system, I think those two elements combined make for a very rewarding feeling when you come out on top in a battle, because you really feel like, I picked the right time to do my attacks, I picked the right direction, I picked the right positioning. All of that stuff becomes very important. Now, it could very much so be the case, and some people could certainly feel that it's just a spam fest. And while you could argue that you can just spam a specialty attack, for instance, just spamming is going to have, while sometimes successful effects, it's not going to be nearly as successful as often as people who are thinking about the combat and responding to what your opponent is doing. You know, if your opponent dodges to your left, you want to swing in and maybe push to the left with your attack, just as an example. You know, being able to see your opponent's moves and then respond in kind is really what's going to set the good players from the ones that aren't so good. And that's why again I feel like the combat system is very rewarding for those multitude of reasons. The animation priority, as well as, oh gosh, that's hilarious, as well as the directional blocking and attacking. All those things make for very satisfying combat. And yeah, it's great. I'm having a good time, and I'm happy to again see the improvements that they made. And maybe in a future video I'll sort of touch on what all of those are. But just overall, their general feeling with this, from when I talked to the developer, was that they wanted to go with combat that was a little more hectic, a little more in your face, a little more visceral, because that's sort of the distinction that they're making between the medieval combat that you saw in War of the Roses and then this kind of gritty Viking combat that we see here in War of the Vikings. But yeah, that's, I guess, pretty much going to do it. Again, I just really wanted to focus this video on touching on the combat system. And I understand where some people, I also read some complaints where people were talking about the combat seems a little floaty. I want to say that you shouldn't judge that too much, because there's a good chance that that's going to come down to latency. For some reason, a lot of the servers for me are having 100+ ping, which is not ideal. Like, obviously you'd prefer to have a sub 100 ping, and I feel that for that reason, because I've had some ping issues, which I don't know why, because typically I don't. My internet's pretty good. I've got a 15 down, 5 up speed internet, but I think that some of the floatiness that you may have saw in the last video or this video, here's another water death, or in this video, for example, might come down to ping issues, because even right now you can see my pings. I believe that showed at 100. But anywho, that'll do it, guys. Once again, taking a look at War of the Vikings. Got to keep playing it. We'll keep uploading some videos. I'm not entirely sure how I want to structure future videos, but probably just show you some gameplay. Maybe we'll even do special videos where we take a in-depth look at each one of the playable classes, if you will. He totally would have killed me there, so kudos to him. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe, and as always, keep watching and keep owning.